Good morning. Gardeners can be kind of funny. And I know you're probably a gardener, so me saying this to you, I hope you don't take the wrong way, but gardeners can be kind of funny. They think that the way that they do things is the way that it's going to work for everyone else. And sometimes they can get kind of touchy about things too. And I've noticed this on social media, especially when it comes to planting depth, like how deep you plant your seeds. So a couple of years ago, I put a whole lot of effort into reading all of my seed packets and making a note of how deep to plant my seeds. And then I came up with what I thought was a brilliant chart that would show how deep to plant your seeds. And the reason I did this was because a lot of seed savers, they get packets that don't have any information on them at all. And so you're swapping seeds with friends, and you don't always make a note of how deep to plant something. And you can go and look it up if you're curious, because there's resources online. But if you're planting a whole garden, going to look up every seed that you're going to plant, that's a lot of work. And if you are kind of detail oriented about your gardening, you probably want to know the proper way to do these things. So I diligently went through all of my seed packets, because I was also going through a process of transferring them into smaller packets so I could store more of them, because as you probably know, I have tons of seeds. So in this process, I just made note of all of these different planting depths, put them in a chart for myself, then I consolidated it and kind of made general statements about seeds on this handy chart. And I can share this chart with you in the comments below. However, the first time I published this chart, I got all kinds of blowback from people who said, you don't plant things that deep, or you plant things, this is supposed to be surface sown. Don't plant it a quarter of an inch deep, it'll never work, yada, yada, yada. Now, I had gone to the seed packets themselves. All of my information came from the seed packets. But I was actually getting angry social media posts, comments on Facebook about this, and how I was off base about one seed or another seed. I was giving bad information out. Now, I've gone back afterwards and I have double checked my seed packets, because I keep all my old seed packets, even without the seeds, for reference purposes if I want to go back and look at them. And I wasn't wrong about what the seed packet said, but I was wrong about people's individual experiences with seeds and with their gardens. And when you contradict somebody's individual experience, quite often they get their back up about it, apparently, especially on Facebook. So I'm not just giving this out anymore without this bit of background, so that you understand that I know that there are different ways of doing things, and those different ways can work just fine. Like, for instance, with lettuce, the official depth that you want to plant lettuce, according to most seed packets, is about a quarter of an inch. But there are a lot of people who just surface sow lettuce seeds because they're so tiny. And then they keep that surface damp enough so that they'll sprout. Well, if you plant something in your garden and you're not able to keep it damp enough, that it might be difficult if you don't have a rainstorm in the first couple of days after planting your lettuce seeds. So maybe a quarter of an inch is a better bet. But who knows? Who knows? What works for you might not work for me. Also, I found last year with lettuce that I just accidentally dropped some seeds around through the mulch that was around my actual raised bed that I was planting my lettuce in. And the seeds that germinated in the mulch did better than the seeds in my garden and the pre-started lettuces that I planted in my actual raised bed. So the seed probably fell through the cracks in the mulch and grew out into a really nice lettuce plant. So next year, I'm not going to bother with all the work of making sure I plant it 1/4 of an inch deep. I'm just going to scatter some of these on my mulch and see what happens. Because chances are, with all the lettuce seeds that I'll probably scatter, I'm going to have a good crop of lettuce, even without trying. Probably end up stepping on half of it. Well, anyway, this I'm going to share with you, but I'm also going to talk about it right now, and with the understanding that there's also a rule of thumb that people use. So I'm going to give you the rule of thumb up front, so that you can know that this is very specific, but not necessarily what you need to follow. So the rule of thumb is, if you don't have this chart, if you just want to wing it, you can, because seeds are very resilient. What people try to do is plant them at least twice the depth of how large the seed is. And I've heard both, like the height of the seed or the width of the seed, twice that depth. Seeds are resilient. They're used to dropping off plants and falling on top of the surface. So anything you do beyond that to bury them a little bit, you're probably just giving them a little bit of an edge and protecting them from the pests that otherwise might eat them right off of the garden. But even if you surface sow all of your seeds, you'll get a certain amount of germination, and a certain number of them will work just fine as long as you've got enough water. So the 1/4 inch depth seeds are things like tomatoes, peppers, so things in that family, the ground cherries, also your brassicas, like your cabbages, your Brussels sprouts, your cauliflowers, and a lot of the herbs and things like lettuces, like cilantro, basil, dill. So these are really all very tiny seeds, and you can kind of tell it just from the, from the picture on the chart, which I use. It gives you approximate size of these things. That the 1/4 inch depth, it's for the size of the seed, it's actually kind of a significant depth. It's actually deeper than like twice the height or twice the width of the seed. Somehow they power through, right? When you get to the beets and the chard and the spinach and kale and parsnips and carrots and things like that, they actually can be planted significantly deeper than you would imagine from using that rule of thumb that I just gave you. In fact, many of these packets you'll find suggest planting them about 1/2 inch deep. So those don't really necessarily go by that rule of thumb of like twice the width or height or whatever of the seed, although that will work too. But 1/2 inch deep is what's recommended for those types of plant, generally on the seed packets that you will find. You may find some different ones, in which case I encourage you to plant them at whatever depth the seed packet says. But if you're getting them from a seed swap and you don't know, this is a good rule of thumb. So parsnips, beets, chard, spinach, kale, radishes, carrots, about 1/2 inch deep actually works okay. So for your squashes, you're looking more like 1 inch deep with these. And squashes and cucumbers and your watermelon seeds, things like that, your melons in general. And quite often these are grown in mounds, and you'll put several seeds together on a mound, and you plant those more like 1 inch deep. Now, the beans are the sort of the deepest common garden, kitchen garden vegetables, and those can go 1 inch deep and sometimes deeper. They have very strong shoots, and they really push through, and can some packets I've seen have said more like 1.5 inches deep. And if you've got really large bean seeds, you might even go as deep as 2 inches. It's up to you. If you've got a seed that you're not entirely sure about, you should definitely check and do a little bit of research on it. So what I'm giving you here is rules of thumb and kind of the averages that I found from checking out seed packets in my collection, which has an awful lot of seed packets. So if you are interested in getting a copy of this seed planting chart with all of those caveats and no promises, I will share a link to this in in my description below. I would love to hear your feedback in the comments below. And if you are interested in joining one of our Zoom chats where you can tell me personally how wrong I am about how to plant seeds, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a comment. If you don't comment on that below, because I don't want to miss you if you're interested in joining that, and sometimes I miss the comments. If you would go to the foodforestgardenclub.org website, and in the contact us form, just get in contact with me. Let me know what whether if you would like to join us for one of these live Zoom chats with a bunch of us and talking about seeds, talking about plants, talking about planning our gardens for the upcoming season. If it's a little later in the year, we might even be showing off what we're growing. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope to hear from you soon. All right, take care.